Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to FM22. It's Journeyman. We're on episode 30. Last time out, of course, was a huge episode for us because finally the Journeyman has, taken at least a step. Essentially, really just our second step forward. Our first step forward was progressing with the team that we have, Semen Padang, in Indonesia, where we started our career. And we went from Division 2 to Division 1. We went from Division 1 to the upper end of that, qualified for the Asian Continental Competition, the Asian Cup in particular, and went all the way to the final. Now, of course, we neglected the league during that season, last season, and ended up in third place. We actually outscored what we did the season before, performing slightly better, but where we had finished second, this time we finished third. And we just missed requalifying for the Cup. Therefore, this season, still with Semen Padang, we look to get back into that step, back into that stage, again, qualifying for Asian competition, whether that's the Asian Cup or the Champions League. But we finally found some sort of progress in the career step ladder. Now into that second phase, we are now the national team coach for Indonesia, in addition to still coaching Semen Padang. So that means we now have a two-front to cover. One front being what we do with the national team. We'll go through the first couple of steps that I'm going to take with the national team for the season, but then also with Semen Padang. And while I won't cover a lot in terms of the games, right now is that frenzied off-season period. For the most part, I've only shown you the outcomes. What players do we end up with? This season, I figured I'm going to show a little more of the method to my madness, the process that I use to get after the players and then ultimately decide who to go for. So right now, the screen we're on is a screen where I'm about to offer 4 more trials. And this is how I get 99% of the players that I bring into the squad is through this trial process, get a good solid look at them, and then sign the best players for the club. From here, these 4, I went after a single trait. Now, I have a very limited scouting range, and there's plenty of Indonesian free agents out there, thousands of them. So I have to whittle it down somehow, and there's a few ways that I do that. And one of those methods, again, with limited scouting, we don't have much information on these guys. But if I search those who are interested in a transfer, that's a good start for us. But then also bring that search down a little bit, narrow it down somehow. In this case, I narrowed it down to the best headers of the ball. Now, of course, they're going to fall within a range. These guys aren't necessarily going to have that. And I'd love to get multiple attributes within that search, but Indonesia is just not going to produce much for that. And I will attempt that. I generally do, but for the most part, that doesn't pan out too well. I have to just kind of get what I can get. I already have quite a few guys on trial. We're going to take these 4 more. I'm going to offer the 4 weeks because when 1 week isn't necessarily going to give me a full view of their attributes. And for some players, you only need a few days to decide anyway. But this is part of that process. And you can see from these 4, it's all strikers and or center backs. There's also 3 other that showed up in the search, but I've already either had them on trial through searching them through another means, or they're still on trial. Now, plenty of these are total misses, and we're going to see that right off the bat. Ronaldo is somebody we just added in. That's a miss. There's no way we're going to sign this guy on. But we don't know until you try. This one's not going to pan out either. This one looks a little bit better, and we may want to give him some time, but already at 25 years of age, I'm guessing probably not going to be good enough. But it turns out there is a bit of a find right here. Artie Idris, 3-star talent. Somebody that I was already looking at otherwise. And here's one, we might stick around for a little while just to see fully, but I'm guessing not quite going to be good enough for us. I'm only into the 11th day since the end of the year where all those contracts expired. I did let a few guys go. I've already pre-signed our first one, but February 1st is when they can actually sign. So you have a full month in between the expiration of contracts to the point where they can actually sign new contracts. But looking at the squad, this is how things are right now, at least according to the assistant manager. And Saputro, Walian's the one who has signed already. Saputro, I'm probably going to look to sign very soon, especially because he's only 18 and supposedly that good. But when you got in there a little bit further, some of the reports are suggesting that he's not quite that good. And so I'm trying to give this a little more time so that we can sort out the attributes, and we're getting a little closer on that. Finishing's only a 6, but he's aggressive, work rate, teamwork are fairly high. Pace is a 10. Yeah, still not sure on this one, but we might sign him for the right price, even if he's not good enough, because as I've already found out, as I just let Saimima go a couple days ago, I'm getting like 30,000 for Saimima, and that's all he cost us per year. He gave us some decent minutes, and somebody just gave us 30K to part ways with him, which is definitely good for the team balance. And he played his role just fine while he was with us. If Saputro is the next Saimima for us, if we can turn around and sell him for 30, 40, 50K, I'd be happy with that. Essentially, he didn't cost us anything to have on the squad. And Saimima was like 29, 27, something like that. Saputro at 18 would probably have a higher value. Now, part of my process, and I've already parted ways with probably 50 to 60 trialists over the last week and a half. So I've already been down this path. But what I'm constantly doing is I'm looking at the bottom end and seeing who's absolutely not going to cut it. Some of these guys could maybe be good enough, and so I want to give them a chance. This, like Pernomo, looks like he's a decent talent and above. But down here, yeah, there's going to be a lot of misses. But let's say this guy, Ojarela. If Ojarela is actually at this higher end, that might be a decent player. And if he can play fullback, our right wing back position anyway, that for us could be very useful. But this guy clearly not good enough. So Rinaldi, yeah, we're going to select him. This one's not going to be it. Even if he has 2.5 star potential, that's not going to be good enough. That's a wing back and 2 stars. That deserves a longer look. Okay, weak center back. Let him go. And as I start to learn a little bit more about each of these players, kind of helps make up my mind on what to do. Now, you could already clearly see that you're looking at a better option right below and a year younger. So go ahead and let that one go. And there's my next 4 anyway to clear out, terminate those trials, to clear some space for more trialists to come in. And that's kind of the process early on. And the longer they sit here and train with the club, the more we'll know. And all my regular players are on vacation right now, which actually makes it really easy to then get a look at just the trialists. So it allows us to paint that picture a little bit faster while everybody else is on vacation. One method that I use is going position by position, because it's too large of a pool if you don't do something. See who's expired, as in has no contract, and then simply sort by world reputation, meaning these guys, there's something about them that has helped earn them at least a little bit of a reputation, and therefore maybe they're a worthwhile player. As a squad, we don't have much in terms of reputation. These, the ones with the recommendations, mean I've already seen them at least a little bit. Either they're on loan with me now or we've scouted them somewhat. So we'll try this one. But instead of doing one at a time, here's how I normally handle this. I will unselect and I'll select a range of guys, and especially those that fall into this category. But for me, that's too many to get down to this end. And I'll just take these half star and above, the more well-known, well-developed reputation type players. They had to have done something. They had to have played at least a little bit of ball to make that happen. But I don't think I have room for that many right now. So let's take to here and offer, 9. I think I have space for about 9 more. And we'll offer them all 4-week trials. All right, many of the new faces aren't going to be good enough, but this is, again, how I kind of run through that process of eliminating another group of the weakest players on trial, the ones that are clearly not going to cut it. You eliminate all of those, and then, the decent ones that actually come in, those are the ones that you give a proper look to and start comparing with the players you have and see what their attributes are. But they need time. They need time to be on trial. They need time to train with the club until you get to know them. But if you just sit and wait, you can only bring in so many. I think the limit's like 25. If you bring in 25 players and sit and wait on those, there might be 3 or 4 that are worthwhile. But if you sit and wait for a month, a lot of the available players are going to be gone. And so you have to kind of quickly recycle and start making some decisions on which players aren't good enough so that you can continually bring in more players to replace that group and ultimately look at 100 or even 150 players instead of just 25. And so then instead of finding 2 or 3 worthy candidates, you may end up finding 10 worthy candidates, and from them actually make that quality decision of which 3, 4, 5, or 6 are going to have the biggest impact on your squad, be the most useful to you, fit your tactic, add first 11 quality or add quality depth, whatever the case may be, fit your budget. 2 players that are very similar, and one asks for a ton of money, one asks for significantly less, but is only, a hair worse in terms of quality, might be a worthwhile transaction for you. And so that's the big thing to this process, is getting through quickly, day by day. I mean, we're not even 2 weeks into this process yet, and I've probably seen 75 players at this point come through on trial thus far. And there's a good 8 to 10 right now that have got a legitimate shot. And we've already signed up pre-contract with just one of those so far. But for the others, I want to give them that little bit of time, get that decent look at them before we part ways or offer a contract. So between scouting recommendations, my own scouting lists that I've been maintaining, and then, of course, that process that I was just going through, position by position, taking all the most well-known players and giving them a trial and kind of seeing where that takes us. And then I've done a little bit of the attribute hunting. Now that I've also managed to clear up a few more spaces where we've got a good probably 10 slots available right now for trialists to really properly, I'd say, get our last look, unless diamonds in the rough show up. I'm going to go ahead and go back into scouting, unselecting position. Now, I have a good goalkeeper, my backup goalkeeper left on a free, but I do have somebody on trial who could be a good, solid number 2, better than the one we just lost, if he's willing to sign for the right price. If not, our best youth player coming up through the system is a goalkeeper. He is part of the national team system in the youth ranks, so he's got a decent chance of being a quality backup who could develop, that we would want to give a few games too over the course of the season to help with that process. So I'm not worried about goalkeeper. So that kind of puts me right into the outfield range. Now, technically, I could go position by position by position and really get specific on certain things. But I'm not going to search by position. I'm going to search just through attributes and start to find a few combinations that really work. Let's take a few obvious ones. Let's take heading, marking, tackling. Technically, that's what you want in your defense. But it's more than that, right? There's the mental side to it as well. They need to be brave. They need to have good positioning. And you want them to make good decisions. They need to have good jumping reach. And they need to have strength. I'm not going to worry about pace this time around. But if we search at 15, yeah, we're not finding anything. There are no Indonesian players like this. So first off, we're going to back off and search for 5 out of 8. That'll make it a little bit easier. But that's still not getting us anything. Like I said, none of the Indonesian players are like that. That would be the best player in the nation. So we have to just start backing off and seeing what we can find. And there's a big list, 14 players found. Okay, this is along the lines of what I was aiming for. Now, surprisingly, Yuchen, positioning, determination are both high. Tackling looks okay, but the heading is worrying. The marking is worrying. The jumping reach is a bit of a concern. He is 6 foot, and he is strong, and he is available on a free, and we don't have a terrible rating for him. He's already got a bid in. I think I'll give him an offer. Ramdani is somebody we've seen, know a bit about. That was the highest reputation, but maybe that's just because Chinese could come with the territory of the league. But I want to take a look at ones that I have not seen. Yeah, and there's Erngir. Erngir is somebody we're looking at already in the squad. Left back, but we would train him to be a wing back. On a defensive mid, we'll try to offer him a contract. A trial. They might turn us down, but they may say yes to the trial. All right, so there's 4 more potentials. Kind of going position by position, or at least area of the pitch by area of the pitch, and doing an advanced search like that, where you do have a little bit, obviously with the attribute masking and the lack of scouting, we just don't know much about many of these players, and that's going to be the case. But you get creative, you get in there, and you do some hunting, and you find those diamonds in the rough, guys you didn't know about, but it turns out they're good enough to play for the squad. And at the end of the day, that 150 players that we end up looking at give us a much bigger picture of what's out there and what could be useful for us than the simple route, or just going through scouting and not doing some searching yourself. And I find way more options this way. And that's how we've built a team that was 2nd division and very quickly is competing at the top of this league. Ooh, looky what we have here. This is one of those. This is one of those names that we were just going through. Now, from that list, there was only a few. We found ourselves a pretty good one. This was somebody we knew nothing about, but Ersin Lestaluhu looks a lot better than the Lestaluhu who has been playing the position for us for a long time. The marking, the tackling, already very good. He also can actually pass. His heading's not that bad for this nation. 9'7", 5'7", but that's a very common height. He's got some pace. He's kind of weak when it comes to the strength, but... And looky here. Already good enough to play wingback. This is somebody you could bring in and sign on the cheap, and is going to significantly improve a position that's been a massive weakness for us. There's a reason why this guy may not be signed, unless he's signed as a backup, though. We'll get to that one later. But let me go ahead and finish up my process for this. we'll push forward in time, and we'll see what kind of signings we're making here in a 2 to 3 weeks time. So technically we just started the season a few days ago. So at this stage we have one transfer in, one transfer out on the year. We'll look past that in just a second. The first one in, Arthur Irwan, is signed to be a backup to Walladane at that right wing back position, but he is actually slightly better. But his contract is for fringe player, while Walladane is an important player. So for now, we'll keep him as the backup, give him plenty of time, give him occasional starts, and try to keep Walladane happy, at least in the short term. Nur Yoga, who was intake player like our first year or something like that, just graduated into the U21s squad. He only had so much potential, and he wasn't really going to go anywhere. So we cashed in on that for $5,000 up front and 10.5 in time. But here is the real one that we want to pay attention to, as we do have some moves. Quinonez, of course, came in last season, and you have to kind of look at that. Febrianto, Kabula, Jack Brown, partway through the season. But here's where we get into our new signings. Ezra Walian comes in as a new striker, an upgrade on Eunice. Irsen Lestaluhu and Abdu Lestaluhu to replace Lestaluhu at let's see, what is that? Anan Lestaluhu, as well as Febrianto at that left wing back position. Really odd that we have 3 Lestaluhus rotating through that. Lestaluhu is gone. We got actually a small amount of cash for him. Rizki Palu, who was that midfielder that we were training to be wingback because I couldn't find one, and did okay there. Rinto Ali. So I've really gotten rid of a lot of those players that had been playing that role, and got 2 proper ones in. Now, Irsan is supposed to be the backup. Abdu is supposed to be the starter. However, Irsan is a tiny bit better than Abdu, and so we'll see how that one goes. He's also younger. He's also got potential, where Abdu is 31 and at his peak, and is the fullback for the national team. So he's a quality player, and yet we found 2 quality players to play that position, and our left wing back is suddenly the stronger of the 2 sides, which is weird because we've had Walladane for a few seasons now. The guy he replaced, whose name I can't remember, before him, that first year anyway, was easily one of our best players, and Walladane was an upgrade compared to him. And so that's been one of our stronger positions, and we just now went beyond what we had really on either side. So the wingback position is not going to be an extreme weakness this year like it's been in past seasons. Doesn't mean that they're going to be amazing or fantastic. It's a position that by itself has some weaknesses, inherent weaknesses, but because we play 3 defenders and 3 center mids through the middle, we have such a strong presence, and those wingbacks giving us that width do their role even when the other guys weren't as good. Having better players there can only be a good thing for us, really. Wabowo is a young player for the future, high potential, low current ability, just somebody to throw into the system. And Saputro is a little bit of both. Center mid, who is capable of starting right now, but we already have 3 really solid center mids and a couple really solid backups. He's better than those backups. He's right there in the mix with those 3 starters, and he's 18 or might have turned 19 in the last couple of days. So he's very young and has plenty of potential to grow on what he already has. So now we have a selection headache where we have 4 quality players. He wanted important for his role. I got him to accept first squad, but that does mean I'm going to have to sort out that playing time, and it's not going to be the easiest thing. He, unlike the others, actually does fit the role of a ball-winning midfielder, and that's something we kind of lack. We have a lot of attacking players, and he's good at that, and still can contribute because he's got some quality. On the way out, of course, Lucas Gabriel was the big sell. We made more money last season than we have any previous season. And this is where we were really, really cash strapped and we had to cash in on players. Now, Gabriel is somebody we cashed in on, but we were going to lose him for a free. We were a stepping stone. He was on to bigger, better things. Speaking of, how was his year last year? He has continued to develop pretty well. You can see he's easy 5-star talent if you were coming back. And he had 40 appearances and 12 goals. Going back to Brazil? Is that where he's in the reserves, actually. And yes, back to Brazil, back home. The second division. So since the turn of the year, we've gotten rid of 4 players for a combined total of 40,000. And most of that up front, which is really the nice thing on that. It's not back-end deals. But then also we allowed, 3 senior squad guys to expire and leave the team, and then a couple youth players. So all in all, we're down about 7, and we've brought in 9. Add 1 to each, because, right, the 25. So 8 and 10. And the amazing thing, too, is our finances are actually in good shape, at least at the moment. So we still have a positive balance. We don't have that continental competition this season. And that could be tricky to maintain that balance. You would suspect that it's going to deteriorate without it. We made it through last season barely, after the sell of the club. That balance was deteriorating, and then the continental competition brought it back up. So far this year, we're maintaining, but that's because we had sponsor ticket sales, season ticket sales, selling 50,000 worth in players, keeping the balance positive. I would suspect it's going to go back into the red this season, but if we do make the continental competition, should be okay. We've got $250,000 right now, which isn't terrible. Certainly an okay-ish amount of money. It's not going to run out immediately anyway. Overall, last season, we still somehow lost $465,000. I mean, that's despite the continental competition. So this expected to be gone, but the good news is, at least for the time being, we are $500,000 under budget. So board's going to be very, very happy with us. We have plenty of transfer budget to do something as well, meaning if we really wanted to, and the one place I'm kind of thinking about doing something is center back, we could. The reason why I'm thinking about that is, first off, Diego Londono is somebody I would love to sign. I would love to sign him. He's only 20, Colombian. He agreed to come in on trial. And once we've seen everything, he looks pretty good. Now, he doesn't train well, probably a language barrier for that, because he does have determination. We don't know about those hidden attributes, but you would think he's got the ability to get better as a 20-year-old. He's not very fast. He's not very strong. The jumping reach isn't there, but that's typical of midfielders in our league. But he's got a great first touch, good passing, good tackling, good technique, and some really strong mental attributes. I mean, compared to our league, this guy's pretty dang good. But unfortunately, league rules, we can only have 3 foreign players that are non-Asian. We can have a 4th player as long as one of those 4 is from an Asian nation other than Indonesia. But I have 3 already, and they're all from non-Asian nations. And as he is as well, he would exceed our total. And I'd be okay with that because he's an upgrade. Except the problem that he creates. 1, we're strong in midfield. It's our strongest area. In fact, we have 4 of our 5 best players play the 3 positions there, meaning we have too much quality. As Saputro, right there in the mix. Quinones is one of those guys. Akono and Kabula are the other 2. Quinones is key. We can't get rid of him. Kabula, center back's my weakest spot right now. Masirin is the starter. Cristanto is on the bench. Walade's still the starter, but you can see there's the end of the squad is defenders, and that's our two best guys. I can't lose them. I tried to sign a center back from that long list. I only ended up finding one that was good enough to sign. He's actually only slightly better than Masirin. Really not by much. But I offered him a contract anyway to give us some more depth, give us a little more strength there. And he ended up signing with somebody else, even though he had agreed to terms. And there was no other options that I found. So might actually look into buying a center back to give us another quality player and drastically improve. I'd be happy to have Masirin off the bench. Don't like having him in the starting lineup. I really don't. The only action that we haven't finished yet is we have agreed to terms with Antello. Antello, another midfielder. Not that great. He would be a backup, but look at that potential. Look at that 4.5 to 5-star potential. He could be a great player at just 19, and signing for fairly cheap. Yeah, it's worth it. He's got value for us, especially as we do have a number of older players on the squad. So I can't get rid of Kabula. Okono has been our top striker. We needed somebody better than Eunice to partner with Okono. Losing Lucas Gabriel cost us a lot of goals last season, and where we had improved in other positions, we ended up just about the same. This year, we've improved in a number of positions, including finding not a Lucas Gabriel equivalent, but definitely an upgrade on Eunice in Walian. If we get rid of Okono to make room to sign Landono, we're further strengthening a position that's already too strong, too deep, and we'd have to eliminate some guys, which, okay, we could get somebody in return, but we'd have to give up Okono to do that, and that would hurt us in a place that cost us a lot of goals last season. I'd like to get those goals back this year. Therefore, Landono, as much as I'd like to sign him, it's not happening at this time. Plus, looking at him, you'd see the Lucas Gabriel situation all over again. We'd have him for 1 to 2 years, and he'd want a stepping stone on out of here. Now, of course, I'm not looking to be with this team more than another 1 to 2 years. 1 year. But now that we're the Indonesian coach, the national team coach, maybe we have found some roots here. I don't know. We'll see what it's like to manage nationally. It's been a lot of years. Even though I created this tactic out of necessity when we got promoted, we found it to work really well, right? Our first year, we had players in place. We should have been successful. We were successful. We could have been more successful, though. When we got promoted and I found a need, I made something that worked. And it was something unique compared to the rest of the league in particular that we found gave us a real advantage. Now, playing nationally, we're going to be facing squads that have different looks, different feels, but I still really like the idea of overloading the midfield and getting that advantage that we have. Therefore, I'm going to try to replicate what we have with Simon Badang on the national team level, see how it goes. The only unfortunate thing is our schedule. And the schedule, well, our first game, April 1st. But that is also our very first window. I mean, I got the job at the end of December, but there is no national team breaks for months. Our very first opportunity to even have a friendly is March 29th, just a handful of days, few days before we play Saudi Arabia. So that sucks. But what can you do? That makes it really hard on my job because the players won't be properly trained in it. And a lot of guys are going to be coming into a system that they don't know. So I do worry about how they might perform. Well, what can you do? Our next window opens right away with our India game. So a week later, still in that window, we'll play against Maldives. I'm thinking about there's a third date in there that we could schedule something, and I might do that just to get the team more experience, spread the players around a little bit, and give some guys a go and see how they do. In fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and arrange that friendly now, and you'll see what I'm talking about here, as these are the only dates, right? Everything else is blocked out. I would like to do one here a few days before we play. This one was already, they approached us about scheduling, and I'm kind of tempted to do that, but I don't want to tire these guys out. That's 3 games in just under a week, and that could be a little rough. So we'll stick to one. But here, it's a different story, right? You have the game that counts, but then you still have 2 more game dates. So we're going to go ahead and take the 14th. Oh, they won't let us. Well, damn. That sucks. We're only getting 2 possible from the 3 dates there anyway. So 3rd of September it is. We're going to have to schedule that next one. And that's all we can do. We could schedule a whole lot of teams, it looks like, but so my hopes were to maximize our friendlies to prepare the team. We don't get to do that, which is really unfortunate. But you do what you can. We have 6 matches, 3 that count. That's at least going to give us a look at some players and see how they fit into the system and how they do. Unfortunately, it doesn't give us much room for error. We have to perform. We have to get something out of those 3 matches, though we do get 3 more to come back better. You can't leave it late. We definitely can't lose all 3. We're going to have to get something. You would think 4 points from those 3 matches might put us at least in an okay spot. Maybe enough to be second place at that stage, or certainly close enough. But it's going to be tricky trying to get the team set fast. So I'm going to have to spend a lot of time looking at the pool, seeing what's out there, seeing what players there are, properly comparing position by position by position, and getting the players we want into the squad, not necessarily the guys that management rate or that are the most popular, but the ones that fit the system and are going to play the role, that are going to step up. Might include a couple of my own guys, especially at that wing back spot, as that's been a hard one to fill in a country that doesn't use it. But that's where we're at. That's going to be coming up actually before we get into the league matches. Our league matches start just after that in early April, maybe a week later. Maybe a week into April is our first league match. So next time we're going to be opening with some national team games. Of course, I'll be handling preseason otherwise and working on trying to fill those roles and decide who it is I want to call up for Bangladesh and Saudi Arabia. That's going to do it for this one, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.